Welcome to KRJ Consulting's Synergy Leadership Podcast, a discussion with engaging, empowering, and enlightening leaders about the greatest competitive advantage in business and entrepreneurship that often goes unrecognized, a team's energy. Here's your host, the woman who puts the energy in synergy, Karen R. Jenkins.
Hello, and welcome to the Synergy Leadership Podcast, where we have real conversations with leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are helping people move forward personally, professionally, and collectively. I'm your host, Karen R. Jenkins. In a time where organizations are navigating disruption, communities are searching for opportunity, and leaders are carrying more pressure than ever before, conversations like this one matters. Today, I'm so excited to have a special guest and friend, someone who has dedicated his life and leadership to creating pathways, building people, and strengthening communities through workforce development, economic mobility, and service. Please join me today in welcoming Kenny Smith, founder of GraceMar. What I appreciate about Kenny's work is that it goes beyond programs and initiative. And I've watched this from a front row seat. At the core of his mission is people, helping people believe again, helping people gain access to opportunity, helping people move from survival to stability, and ultimately into transformation. This is going to be a powerful conversation about leadership, resilience, workforce development, faith, responsibility, and what it really takes to create lasting impact in communities that often are overlooked. Kenny, welcome to the Synergy Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much. That was an awesome introduction. That was awesome.
Because I am here with an awesome individual.
Okay.
So before we get started, Kenny, before GraceMar, before the titles, share with our audience who Kenny Smith is.
Wow. Now, I'm not going to bore you with everything that Kenny is, and was before GraceMar. But I've always been a servant. I've always been that guy, just willing to roll his sleeves up and help someone else. I've always been a teacher and coach. I've always been a leader. And I think that is something, it can be taught, but I think I was just one of those guys that people just naturally look to. They always just, well, ask Kenny. And I just kind of gravitated to it, that, you know what, people are looking to me for leadership. And so I'm going to give it to them. So that's who I am. That's who I am at the core.
And again, from the front row seat, I met Kenny 2008, I think.
December 2008. I never forget it. Actually took me to McDonald's.
You did.
I'll never forget it.
So we met at a time when our community was in dire straits.
Yep.
It was the crash of 2008, and we both, having former financial services experiences, wanted to help. So we went in and started working with the Association of Housing Counselors to get certified as a housing counselor. And the funny thing is, I had 12 years of banking, 11 years of mortgage banking. I went to South Carolina Banker School doing the banking world. I went through mortgage banking school for the mortgage banking side and got certified as a certified mortgage banker. So when I started working with the nonprofits helping with foreclosure, I was told, well, you have to get certified as a housing counselor. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I can teach this. So why do I have to go through this class? So luckily they allowed me to take the test for part A, and I exempted part A, made 100 on the test. Well, of course you would expect that, right? And I was a little, I would say smitten, but I was like, well, wait a minute, why do I have to take part B? But I'm so blessed. And I think I shared the story with you. I'm so blessed that I did, because one, I got to see firsthand what the other counselors were going through. But I met Kenny.
Yes.
I met Kenny. We got to see the programming. And then a couple of years later, actually a year later, probably within that same year, we started teaching, right? We started actually being the certifiers.
Yeah.
So sometimes when there are things that you don't want to do, and you're like, well, wait a minute, why am I having to do this? God has another plan. And
Always.
I ended up with a lifelong friend and
Yes.
colleague.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's funny. I never forget that when we were going through that training, because me, little student with the apple, I sat at the front and I just kept hearing these great questions come from the back of me. And I'm like, who is that? Because I've always judged people, right or wrong, by the depth of their questions. You can always tell a thinker. You hear them, the question, you're like, that's a really well thought out. I kept hearing those questions. I'm like, who is that? So when I turned around, I was like, okay, hey, we should go to lunch. And oddly enough, I don't know if you remember who we went to lunch with. It was me, you, and John Worthy, who actually is a
Oh, okay.
pastor. And John Worthy, actually, you ever seen that book? That movie War Room?
Hmm.
So at the end of the movie, the couple that's going in to buy the house, and the guy walks into the closet and he says, "Someone's been praying in this room."
Hmm.
That's John. So
Shut up.
yeah, yeah. So I got this crazy memory sometimes. Well, my wife says I have selective memory, but I do have this crazy memory. And yeah, that's how we met. Because I remember you asking those questions.
Wow.
I'm like, who is that lady who keeps asking these questions? I got to get to know her. And I've always been a networker. I've always been one of those guys who say, if there's talent in the room, I need to meet the talent. And that's really
Yes.
what happened. Yeah, that's really what happened.
That is so crazy. Okay, well, I have to go look him up because I did look at that movie and I love that movie. One of my favorites, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I know somebody famous. I have to go ask for his autograph. So Kenny, let's just jump right in a couple of questions. Was there a defining moment where you realized that your work would be centered around helping people and communities, moving them forward? Was there a light going off of it, or did it just kind of morph into this?
I always knew. I always knew, and this is, I know this is rare because a lot of people don't know what they want to do. I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I always knew that. I didn't know what I was going to teach. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I always knew that I wanted to teach and help other people. And so uh, at the core of everything that we do, we're teachers and coaches. That's what my organization does. Whether we're working with youth, whether we're working with men, whether we're working with small business owners, at the core, that's what we do, and that's what I've always wanted to do. So the good Lord has had His hand in this, but I always felt like I was destined to do exactly what I'm doing. So I don't think it morphed. I just think I sometimes purposely chased it, but also sometimes the good Lord just pointed me in that direction, and it just has worked out for me.
And what a blessing you have been to so many. Again, I've seen it from the front row seat, and I think you and I are kindred spirits in that we do a lot of parallel work and parallel things together, which is probably why we're still friends today. Um, in my world as well as yours, we're in this workforce and community development piece, and I think there's some misunderstanding. So, what do you think most people misunderstand about why communities struggle to move forward?
I don't want to. I'm going to give my experience because I can make a lot of assumptions, and I've witnessed a lot as well. Uh, so that I am just unbiased, I'm going to use Kenny Smith as an example because when you grow up as a kid, you may be experiencing some type of economic issues, which we did as kids. You don't understand the depth of the breadth of them. You don't understand, why is mommy and daddy on food stamps and why do we live in this community and the rent's only $25? You don't understand those things. I'm not saying those things happened to me, but some of them did. Um, but when I left corporate, I was far removed from, needing, assistance. We were doing quite well. But when I got into this industry, and my goal was to just truly understand what was going on, I didn't understand the depth of these systems that continue to apply pressure and keep people in the positions that they're in. It really is, oftentimes very difficult for people just to come out of this thing that I'm going to label poverty. there's so many systems that are working against them that I think I assumed weren't there. But once I got there, I was like, holy smokes, that's the reason why such and such is not doing this, or why that person is doing this. Because you know what? Staying at home is probably a lot more cost effective than actually going to work. I mean, I hate to say that, but this bit, I'm speaking about the benefit cliff, but there are times where it actually makes more sense for someone to sit at home than to go to work. It just does. I hate to say it like that, but these systems are there, they're real, and I think sometimes they don't use common sense where common sense needs to be used. And it really applies the pressure that really keeps people in the situations that they're in.
So I'm gonna, because it's no single answer, right?
Yeah.
It's no single ingredient that um, puts communities in certain
Yeah.
dire straits. I'll say it that way.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think from what I have observed, one of it is knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And the analogy that I use is that if you don't know the rules of the game, you're already set up for failure.
That's right.
And if you don't understand what the requirements are, or that there are even opportunities out there for you, and how do you go about achieving them, then you will be stuck, right?
Absolutely.
The hamster wheel. And the
Yep.
hamster wheel is designed to put people there and keep them there. Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah.
Then there's the mentality. There's the
Mhm.
mentality that, and I think the mentality comes to from exposure. If you have a community and they're in the community and that's all they know, that they don't even know that there's another thing on the other side of the fence, that they don't even know that they can achieve it, that they don't know that they deserve the opportunity. So I think
Absolutely.
part of it is also the mentality that people have. And I think the other piece is, as a community, when you have systems that are designed to trap you. I mean, and I don't mean it in that way, but as you
Yeah.
said, the math is not mathing.
Mhm.
When I want to get a job, I want to do better. However, I have a child. My child needs medical care. My child needs food. But the job that I currently qualify for is minimum wage. That is not enough for me to pay for my expenses and the things that I need. So if I take this job, I lose the benefits. So, which decision would you make?
Mhm.
But I think there's a piece that we had years ago that we don't necessarily leverage today, and that's community.
Yeah.
There was a point in time when there was a gap within a community, within a family, and we had community that supported those people to give them not a hand out, but a hand up. And I
Yes.
think that globally, we have to go back to some of those things that worked years ago that have been dismantled. I'll say this, one of the, I said it from not just from a social economic perspective, but I said it years ago, is that one of the most segregated times of the week is Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just period. But then when you look at it, I drive down the streets and I see a church on every corner, sometimes two and three. And I'm good with, you have a church and you're working on the souls that are on the inside of your four walls, but you need to work on the outside of the walls.
Yeah.
The souls that are
Absolutely.
there, you're preaching to the choir. The question is, what are we doing? And not just because you can't just put it on churches, right? It
Yeah,
is
absolutely
all of
not.
our communities. It's churches, it's sororities, it's fraternities, it's clubs, it's groups, it's PTOs, it's whoever coming together with a common thread that says, because I truly believe that you're only as strong as your weakest link in the chain.
Absolutely.
And if we want a
Absolutely.
strong chain and we want a strong community, then we have to uplift and figure out how to support community. I do not believe in ongoing um, forever and ever and ever support.
Yep.
I do believe in, let me help you educate you, train you, and then let you stair step your way up without feeling like I have to make a choice between one or the other. I think we can figure out how we get that. So anyway, I'm talking too much.
Well, no, keep going because that is my work and that is what I'm trying to help us eclipse. Because you said a lot of things in that. I want to just unpack a couple of them and just share some thoughts,
Yes, please.
specifically around the community piece. There was, and I can't remember the name of this group. It was two, I think it was a husband and wife out of Iowa State. They were talking about how do you build community. This is why the communities that I work in, I think they don't survive. They talk about these 7 capital acquisitions that you have to make to have a thriving community. The first capital acquisition you have to have is you have to have cultural capital. You have to have affinity and identity with your community, right? That tells you how you're going to interact with one another, the values that you have, the things that are valuable to you. The second, and I'll go through the other ones real quick, but I wanted to preface that I've kind of put them in order. And I believe that that one is the one that's missing. The cultural affinity in the communities in which I serve is that we don't show up as a community as a whole. We're fragmented, right? But once you get the cultural capital, then you get social capital. And most people put social capital before that one, but social capital means nothing if you don't have community affinity with one another. You don't know how you're going to interact with one another. Once you get social capital, then you get human capital. That's when you start training your people and getting them prepared for the workforce to be business owners, whatever like that. Once you get the human capital, then you start getting financial capital because now you got folks out there generating income, starting businesses and things of that nature. And then here comes the one that people really frown at. Then you get political capital because I hate to say this, I'm going to say it on this podcast. Hopefully, no one frowns at me. But 86% of all the political candidates that spend the most money win. So that tells me that if you're able to raise money and support candidates so that they can win seats, that's a way for you to get political capital. And then after you get political capital, you get built capital. That's when you start getting big infrastructure, and then you get natural capital and land and things of that nature. But those are the 7 capital acquisitions. And what you said at the very beginning is that our communities don't have cultural affinity. They are not together. Back in the 20s, when unfortunately, I'm going to speak about the Black community. I'm a Black man, I have an affinity and loyalty to my community. Not that I help everyone. But we're at the bottom of every list you want to be at the top of, and we're at the top of every list you want to be at the bottom of. And let's just make it plain. But when we had that cultural affinity to one another, and we had strong family structures, we had thriving communities. We don't have that anymore. And that is one of the major reasons why we're at the bottom of all these lists that we want to be at the top of. That's bottom line.
You know what, Katie, that was powerful. That's a book, but you and I talk about that later.
Yeah.
So let me go back through the list though, because I think I missed one. I got number 1 was cultural affinity. Number 2 was social capital. Number 3 was financial capital.
Human
4
capital.
was
Human capital. So human capital is number 3.
okay. Human capital. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was missing. So we got human capital number 3. Number 4 is financial capital, political capital. Then there's
Built
built capital, and then there's natural capital.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, very powerful. So, one of the things that I will share, and I'm just going to, since the political one is such the hot rod, what saddens me, well, let me start out. Years ago when I was coming up, I'm not political. I don't do politics, and I still don't. I've had people ask me to run. No, we're not doing that. Not my lane. But one of the things that I've been learning on this journey of entrepreneurship is that you have to be able to do business with people.
That's right.
And as a minority or as a woman, you have to be able to do business with people that don't look like you.
That's right.
Because money is green, right?
That's right.
It doesn't matter. Money is green. And if you don't have the social capital to be able to go into rooms and feel comfortable, and I'm not even going to say comfortable because you don't grow in your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in rooms, I'm sure you're in rooms that, you might be the only one.
Always.
And that's one of those things where I tell people proximity is power. And I
Mm-hmm.
also say you need a seat at the table because if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu.
That's
And I
right.
think that's what we found ourselves. But going back to the political capital side of after building that social capital, the human capital, and even the financial side, you have to have connection with your political leaders. And
Absolutely.
what we do, and I know we do it a lot in South Carolina because we're a red state, and I'm not getting political, but I don't care what color state you are,
That's
right?
right.
At the end of the day, if the person that has been elected, whether you voted for them or not, is representing you.
That's right.
Now, as the constituent, I need to know that. And as the person that's holding the seat, they need to be reminded of that.
That's
But
right.
here's what happens: we go to the poll, our person doesn't win, and then we go and stick our head under the sand. So that person that is now in that leadership role doesn't hear from us. They don't hear our concerns. They don't hear what's important to us. And they go and hear from their constituents. So all that's the direction they're going in. And what we have to do is, again, let's get out that comfort zone. Call your representative. If you're a
That's right.
small business, invite them to your office. Go and see them at their office. Talk to them about what you're doing. Talk to them about your challenges. They're people too. But if we're
Absolutely.
not communicating with them, if we're not talking to them, if we're not letting them know that we even have a concern, then how would they fix our challenges? And it's not
Absolutely.
anything that's going to happen overnight. But what annoys me with our country is this: there's no civility.
Mm.
There's none. And at one point, somebody was telling me, at one point in time, you would go to church with people and you wouldn't know what their political stance was. That was a
Right.
private thing, right?
Yes, it was.
Now everybody wearing it with a badge.
Yep.
And it's a line of demarcation. It's a line of separation. And we don't need that. We used to be the United States of America. I don't know what we are now, but we have to get our leaders to understand that we don't want this bickering. At the end of the day, we have way more in common than
That's
we
right.
do differences. So let's start there. Let's start working on the commonality of our communities.
I laugh when I hear people say we're not the United States, and I laugh because I lived in Toronto for 7 years, and Toronto is probably one of the most demographically diverse cities in North America. I mean, it is truly diverse, and everyone would say, "Oh, Kenny, you're from the States. You're from the States. You're from the States," and I would, States, okay. Why do you guys call us the States? He said, "Because that's what you guys, the States." I said, "No, we're the United States." He was like, "There's nothing united about you guys." That's what was told to me when I lived in Toronto by I can't remember the guy's name. He was from Malaysia. So there's nothing united about you guys. You guys are the states. And I said, wow. That hit home. So when you were saying that, I always chuckle when someone says we're the United States. I think we may see ourselves like that, but no one else does.
And
No
it,
one
and
else.
it's sad because at one point you wake up, you learn as a child, you do the United States, the pledge and all that other good stuff, and you have this sense of pride of where you live and
Hmm.
and the communities that you're in, and then all of a sudden things happen and our image has been tainted, our
Yes.
reputation has been tainted. And as a country, I think we have to figure out who we're going to be. And let's roll into that real quick, because when we go back to the the cultural affinity, the social capital, the human capital part, um, one of the things, especially on the community side, and how did that community get dismantled, um, intentional or not, or just the repercussions of, but we have media that is very, everything negative is on the news. I went to Atlanta on Friday, and I don't watch the news, but we went to visit a family member because we had death in our family, and we're sitting there all in the
I
room,
hear
right?
that.
And the news is on, and it's just kind of on in the background, but we're having
Mhm.
conversation. And my daughter said, "Oh my gosh, we've been sitting here for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and the news was on that rotating reel." And she
Mhm.
said, "They haven't said one single positive thing since the news has been running.
Yeah,
It's, somebody killed somebody did something bad, somebody got, blah, blah, blah." So when you're fed as a community, when you're constantly fed this negative energy, this negative information, and then you flip over to that, you got the news media, then you have social media, right?
mhm.
Um, there is no identity when you are looking for your identity to be defined by you by social media.
That's right.
When my kids were coming up, they were not allowed to watch certain television stations,
Mhm.
television shows. I did not give them access to social media until they were old enough to handle it. And my core belief, or my husband and I core belief, was we were not going to let social media, television shows, and media define who our children were
That's
and
right.
who we were going to be. And I think we as a community have to step back and say, okay, do I want to be part of that blah, blah, blah minutia? Or do I really want to stand my ground and figure out who I want to be and be the best version of myself? So share a little bit about what you're seeing in those communities when it comes to how does that community break down and how do we get it back on track?
Well, that's our job, right? You and our job, right? We're two people, but we got to find the other 10,000, 100,000, whatever it is going to go out there and help our community understand something different. I think you started out talking about the mentality of our communities and also the not knowing in our communities. You know, I'll speak for myself. I didn't come from a community where, there were multimillionaires there and so my mother and father kind of got us to a different line. And then it was my responsibility to then take it to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. I think the mentality piece and the things that are going on in our community is something that we have to take a hold of, be responsible for, and then go out there and change that ourselves, right? We can't let social media or even the media dictate to our community what we are. We get the right. I watch your Synergy Energy, your platforms, and you talk about the loud. I think I heard you say the loudest voice that you'll ever hear is the one that's inside, and you have to do these things, and we have to help our people understand that when everything around you is noise, you need to understand the true power. And if you're a Christian, this should be really easy. The true power of who you want to become is inside. I know it's
Yes.
hard when you hear all the noise. I know it's hard when you see all these things, but you literally got to get to the point where you can look inside yourself. A lot easier to say than to do. But when you have, you know, Karen Jenkins, Kenny Smith, and other people out there coaching you, motivating you, putting you in positions to say, hey, see, look, it is really possible. It is. For me, all I needed was an example. And though everything in my life has not gotten smooth and has gone perfect, I got that one example, and all those things my mom and the people who around me were telling me, it clicked, right? And I think our example, along with some encouragement, along with some tools, can change those things for our communities, no matter what is on social media or is on TV. I just don't think that if we had a concerted effort, that outside influences could dictate how we think and feel about ourselves. I just refuse to
Hey,
do that.
I love it. You bring up a great point. So, and here's the thing, and I know I met a lot of people. We had small business week last week, and I met a lot of small businesses, and I see a lot of people, and they come up to me and they hug me, and they, and I know they love and respect me, and I love them and I respect them. But here's one thing I need them to understand. I see a lot of people that I'm not saying they put me on a pedestal because that's not who I am, but I need them to understand I'm just like them, right?
Right.
We are the example. I think people see us and go, oh wow, instead of saying, oh, she can do it. I can do it too. He can do it. I can do it too. When
Yep.
I was coming up, I did not have the best childhood, right?
Mhm.
One of the things I don't think I've actually shared publicly on the audio, but my mother was a teacher, my father was retired military, but my mother probably my second grade year, third grade year, um, she was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I won't say she checked out, but yeah, checked out.
Yeah.
And my father, he did what he could. At one point, they separated, so it was just me and my sisters at the house. He eventually came back. His mom got sicker, right? She was diagnosed with
Mhm.
lupus. So we struggled, right,
Yep.
coming up. When I look at three young girls and at the time, a separated home until daddy came back home, we should not be as successful as we are right now.
Right. Right.
I'm, running a multi-million dollar company. My youngest sister is about to retire from teaching over, I think, close to 30 years. My other
Mm.
sister is a CPA. We should not be this successful, married with children based on our circumstances.
That's right.
But if people don't learn anything from me, I need them to understand that you are not your circumstances,
That's right.
that you are whatever it is that you think you are. So if you think you can, you think you can't, you are right. And
Yep.
what I share with my kids is I don't know one successful person that did not have some real life struggle. Oprah Winfrey had a real
They
life
don't exist.
struggle. Tyler Perry had a real life struggle. All of the people that you look up to and you espouse to be like as an example, they had to go through something to get to the other side. So we don't use these things as excuses. They're stepping stones. You learn from the experience. You come up with your game plan, and then you go out and make it happen. And I need people to understand that the things that you and I have accomplished is totally available to them too. And we want to
Everybody.
give them the roadmap, right?
Absolutely. And the thing that you said is that we all go through things. And when I when people ask me the question, Kenny, what was the pivotal moment in your life that made you change and this, that, and the other? I said all of them. I said every time I was faced with an adversity, I was terrified, I was scared, I was unsure, but I freaking went anyway. That's the key. That's the key. If every time you get to a wall and it looks like it's too high and you decide, I'm just not gonna do it, you just never will. So I always listen. That is the key to all of this. When you're faced with adversity, go anyway. Just go. Because I always tell people, if you never go, you already know the answer. The answer is no.
Right.
So just go find out to make sure that no is for certain. And that is the
Yes.
big thing. People just won't, they won't go through that adversity. Now, I know some people have gone through things that are far worse than I've ever experienced. But I have my fair share of trials that I've had to endure to get to this point where I can honestly say I'm supremely confident that I don't think there's anything anyone can throw at me. Now I'm not asking for nothing. Now if there's any, hey, listen. I know now I'm not asking for anyone to test that, but I do feel that if something comes, I'm gonna go. Especially if I'm being led by the Lord, which I am. I'm going. And that's what I
And
would like people to do. Just go.
just go. And then here's the other one. So I'm gonna add it, just a little footnote to that. So sometimes when you go, right, and you fall, or it does, I don't believe in failure. I believe in it didn't work out that time. Let's figure out how
Yep.
we get around it. Some people, because they were scared, they were terrified, all the things that you said, they tried it and it didn't work, right?
Hmm.
And then they stopped. And my
Yes,
thing is no. It's not no, it's not now. Or
that's
maybe
right.
it's not no, it's that one wasn't for you. So you
That's right.
keep going and you keep moving. And the forward movement, when you get a pond, right? If you go outside and it's raining outside, you got that little puddle of water, right? if you leave that puddle of water there and it's not forward movement, if this is no motion, you see all the little murky, ugly stuff in it, and then it
Yep.
dries up and the proof is gone. It's the
Yep.
streams that keep on running that has the life in it. So we
That's
have to
right.
keep that forward
I
movement
like that.
and knowing that life is a master class.
It
And
is.
when you go through life, there are going to be things that happen, and you look at it as this is the experiment, right? I'm in science class, so I tried this. Hypothesis says I'm going to try this. This would be the outcome. It doesn't happen that way, or maybe it does. Then you move on to the next thing. But if it doesn't, then you say, okay, well, what went wrong with that? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to adjust?
Mhm.
And then you do it until you find the right answer. So I just love the energy that you bring to your passion to what you're doing. I love all that you're doing to contribute. As I said before, you and I align so much in almost everything we do from that perspective. So if you had to give the audience one or two pieces of advice of how they could move forward, what would that be?
Uh, one, I'll stick with that one. You just have to go. Um, uh, but we talked about thought, and I have a quote on my Facebook page, and I also have it in my office in my back room, and it says, "Think different, be different." Period. And I often say that to my, I said, listen, if you want to be different, just think different. Because there is a process that I teach entrepreneurs. Once you start thinking different, you start asking questions. That's what happens. That's just prompt. You start thinking, they're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You start questioning everything. You put that movement with it, and you have a couple successes, all of a sudden you start believing, and now your actions change. When you start belief is a powerful, powerful emotion. People do some awful things sometimes based on belief, and also some courageous and good things. But you think, then you start believing. But then there's the final step in the equation, and that's when now I don't believe this to be true. I know it's true. And when you know, you become whatever it is you want to be. So I
That's
teach
so
people
powerful.
think, believe, know. Because once you get to knowing, you become that. And so that's the advice I would leave with people. Just start thinking differently because that's going to lead you to those other two. But you got to think differently. And it's hard to do because you talked about it. We've been so conditioned and we've almost been trapped in our brains. And if I could just say one more thing, I'm a avid reader, and so I'm always reading these studies and whatnot. But there's a guy by the name of Dr. George Land from the 50s and 60s. He was asked by NASA to do this study to help NASA find the most creative people in the United States because they were in the space race with the Soviets. Now, as I always say, I'm not saying whether we made it to the moon or not. That's not what I'm trying to say. This assessment tool, though, that he created was to actually gauge an individual's ability to create or to be creative. And what he did, he made it a longitudinal test where he actually tests 4 and 5 year olds at first. What he found out is that 4 and 5 year olds are great at divergent thinking, they're very creative, and 97% of them are geniuses as it relates to being creative. He tested that group all the way till they got 18. By the time they were 18, only 2% of those individuals were creative geniuses. And what that told him and what tells me is that we have lost our ability to create, our ability to imagine. We are locked in our heads with all of these rules and all these things that we taught that limit us. We do not get beyond ourselves. And that is the key driver. And if you want to be an entrepreneur or anything, you got to get beyond yourself. You got to start thinking. You got to get beyond the things that you've been taught and start questioning them. Start asking questions. Start thinking like, wait a minute, why is that this? So I'll be quiet, but But yeah,
No, please don't be quiet. So to my guests, I know we normally last about 34 or 5 minutes, but I'm sorry, guys. We're gonna have to keep going because this is so good. And Kenny, I will definitely have you come back. Um, the 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 creativity, there's a book that I read, and I know it's over there on my bookshelf. It's called The Rookie Mentality. And it even, kind of even landing that what you shared uh, in the business world as well as in the leadership world, you know, when you look at a rookie coming in, a younger person just getting out of college, they all hyped up, they all excited, they want to try stuff, they want to do this, that, and the
hmm
other. And then when we come to that point, when you get to that knowing part, sometimes knowing is good. It is good. It is good. But sometimes knowing, we get so set in our ways that knowing
Yes.
that worked 10 years ago might not be the same knowing that you need 5 years later. So now it's the rookie mentality says is as a leader, right? When you're looking at your business, when you're looking at what you're doing, try to put yourself in that rookie mentality a little bit because it's really about, as you said, we have been so conditioned
Yes.
in our society to walk in this line and do this thing. I mean, you think about it when you were a kid, you got to color in the lines. You
Yes.
can't, so we want to teach people to have moments. And there are times when you need to color in the lines. There are times when you're riding down the road, you need to stay in your lane, right? You got to go by the red, green, and yellow light. But there are times when you need to think outside of the box. And I love the fact that, our systems and our things that we teach are aligned. I talk about it in my TEDx talk about, I tell people, let me give you the T, right? And the T is aligned with what you said. Whatever you think about, right, creates an emotion.
Yes, it does.
And when you get that emotion has a vibrational frequency. And
hmm
that emotion will cause you to act a certain way, and you're going to have a certain result. So,
That's right.
whatever the thought is, creates the emotion, which results in an action. And you get this cycle where if you're thinking about bills and you're thinking about challenges and you're thinking about whatever, you get this emotion that goes along with that. So then you get more of that.
That's
But
right.
if you want to change your life, you have to change your thoughts. And to change your thoughts, you have to change your story. I am not my current circumstances.
That's
It is
right.
just something that is brought before me to test my skills or to prepare me for whatever it is I got on the other side. So when you are thinking, try to spend most of your time thinking about the good things, the positive things, the things that you want to achieve, instead of solely focusing on your challenges. Because when you focus on the challenges, you get more challenges. When you focus on your vision, you begin to develop and create your vision. That is the power of thought.
Absolutely. Amen. 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 That's a sermon. Yeah, we definitely think along the same lines because the reality is that this is not new. I tell people this is not new. It's worked. I've done it. I've literally become this guy by just thinking about it. Right. There's no there are people who are smarter than me, more talented than me, have more connections than me. I literally just believed that after I started to change my thing that I could actually do this. And now unfortunately I know I can do it. And so you can't stop me. But I want to give another nugget if I can, especially for business people, because you started talking about how the environment kind of changes what we might have been doing 5 years ago doesn't work today. And you were hinting and teasing out that as a leader, that is your role to constantly be surveying what's happening and how does it affect my business and what do I need to do differently? Because it's a pesto analysis, but solutions only they have a shelf life. They don't what you're doing today is not going to work forever. So you constantly as a business leader have to be surveying what's going on that's going to impact my business. And this is what I do. I do this at least three times a year by myself where I'll sit down and just write it out. It's a pestle analysis. It talks about the political landscape, the economic landscape, the social cultural landscape, the technology landscape, the environmental landscape, and the legal landscape. These are things that you have no control over. You literally exist in this world. And if we look at something that happened 3 years ago to Kenny Smith in our organization, and everybody's organization was AI. I discovered AI in 2023, right? Watching CNN, or half watching CNN. I knew right then and there, I was like, well, this gonna change the world. You better jump on board now, or you're gonna get left behind. So that literally changed. We didn't change what we did fundamentally, but it changed some of the things that we did. We pushed forth initiatives that we might not have done, 3, 4 years ago, or prior to AI. So what you were hinting at is, especially as a leader of a business, you have to constantly be monitoring what's going on that's going to impact my business, whether it be me directly or my competitors that I need to be aware of so that I can make sure that I'm relevant tomorrow. Because, and I always use this example, I love Blockbuster, but Blockbuster missed the Netflix opportunity, right? Netflix went to Blockbuster and said, hey, we want you to acquire us. And Blockbuster's like, we don't need to acquire you guys. What you're doing is not relevant. They they missed it. And so
They missed it.
we always have to be scanning the landscape and understanding what's going on so that we can keep our business afloat and that we remain relevant.
And I love the fact that you mentioned that you do that, 3, 4 times a year. We do as well. And,
Hmm.
we work with small business and teach them. You have to figure out, especially in the beginning, it's hard, right? Because if you're the cheap cook and bottle washer, it's kind of challenging to do that until you can grow and scale. But even people that have grown and scale don't do it. But you have to work on and not in your business all the time.
Yep,
And working on your business gives you the opportunity to figure out what's coming, to
that's right.
identify where the risks are, identify where the gaps are that might be able to be filled. So that is very powerful. We can let's bring you back and let's have a whole different conversation on the
Absolutely.
impact of AI, right,
Yes.
on our communities, on our businesses, and on our world. This has been phenomenal, Kenny. It has
Thank you.
been phenomenal. Probably one of my favorites. So I definitely will have you come back. I will ask, do you have any parting words? What would you like to leave our audience with today?
I want to leave them with the nugget you dropped. Everything that you see Mrs. Jenkins have, or you perceive that she has, whatever image of her that you have, or whatever image you may have of me, it's for you too. I'm going to say I'm not a special person. I'm just a guy who literally is led by the Lord and is willing just to get a little dirty. Not in the sense that I do things wrong, just that when you're going through life, you get mud on you, right? You go through trials and tribulations. So let me help you understand what I meant by a little dirty. I'm willing to be the one who's out there in the front and taking the arrows. This life is whatever you think it might be, it's for you too if you want it. So you don't have to be special. You just got to be willing.
Thank you, Kenny. That was so powerful. This whole conversation was kind of woosah moment for me. I needed that. Kenny's my friend that sometimes when I just need a moment, I'll call him and we get this little thing. And if I'm dragging or I need a little energy boost to help me stay motivated in my world, Kenny's that guy. So Kenny, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your heart. We felt it today. This conversation was a powerful reminder that leadership is not just about a position, it's about responsibility. It's about service, and Kenny displays that every single day. It is about the energy, the clarity, and the intentionality we bring into every room and every life that we touch. One of the things I hope that our audience takes away from today is that transformation does not happen by accident. It happens when leaders are willing to stay committed to people, even in difficult seasons. It happens when vision is matched with consistency, compassion, and courage. To everyone listening, thank you for being part of the Synergy Leadership Podcast community. If this conversation added any value to you, please take a moment to subscribe, share this episode, and leave a review. It helps us continue bringing impactful conversations and meaningful leadership insights to leaders around the world. And before we go, I want to invite you to take my new and recently released complimentary Synergy Leadership Assessment. You can find it at KarenRJenkins.com-SLA. The assessment itself is designed to help you evaluate how you are showing up as a leader, how your energy impacts your decision-making, your communication, and your effectiveness, and where you may need to reset. Because leadership is not just about what you do, it's about how you show up while doing it. Until next time, remember, you're responsible for the energy you bring into the room. Take care and be blessed.
Thank you for watching the Synergy Leadership Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.